Hi, this is Amanda for Lavinia World. Today we're going to talk about how to build a scene card using a pre-printed background from the Fairy Hugs Fairy-Scapes, some Lavinia stamps, and a Lavinia stencil. So I'm going to start out with the Flourish stencil from Lavinia Stamps, and I sprayed some pixie spray on the back of it, and I'm just going to burnish it down to the pre-printed Fairy Hugs Scenescape. And then I decided to start off with some Salty Ocean Distress ink, and that was too light, but I didn't want to go too dark to start off with, so I did start off with this one. It did not end up showing up in the background in the end. Here you see me lifting up the stencil. So I nixed that idea. And now I'm going to go on to Blueprint Sketch. And so I am starting my stenciling off in the middle. And that is because the stencil does not span across the whole 6-inch piece of paper, cardstock, the Scenescape. And so I do not want those lines from the stencil. So I'm going to concentrate my stenciling in the middle of the stencil, and I'm just going to fade off towards the edge. That way I don't get those harsh lines. So I am, like I said, doing Blueprint Sketch here. And then I'm going to move on to Chipped Sapphire, and I'm just going to add that in some areas and not go completely with it, just a little bit here and there, just to dark up some edges and give a little definition and variety in our stenciling. Actually, I guess texture would really be the word I was looking for there, but anyway, texture is really what we're looking for, and texture is what we got here. And I think that this looks beautiful as is, but of course I'm not going to stop there. So when I like to ink around the edges of a panel, I like to go back to the old school mini ink blending tool here. And not only is this paper or cardstock a white core cardstock, but and I want to cover that up by inking around the edges, but also when I think of an ocean scene, and this is going to be an ocean scene, I also think, I think of it being in the depths of the ocean. I'm going to add a mermaid on this, Althea, from the new release, and I would think that mermaids would be at the bottom of the ocean or close to the bottom of the ocean, and the bottom of the ocean is going to be dark, so I wanted to darken up the edges of it. And that is going to be done with the black soot, obviously. I mean, I guess you could go with one of the darker blues in the distress line, or whatever inks that you want to use. But I chose black soot because it's going to be the darkest. So now I'm going to start stamping some of the kelp and the sea algae from the new release as well. And I decided to do this in the peeled paint Distress Oxide. And I'm going to do both of them at once, and we're just going to rub those stamps in real good and give it time to transfer to the paper. And as you can see, it's not a huge contrast there, but we're going to stamp it again and it's going to show up a lot better. So here's our second stamping. I'm just going to give it a good rub, let it transfer to the paper there. I think sometimes people don't give their stamps enough time to transfer the ink to the paper, and I know I am very guilty of that. I am an impatient crafter. So now I just moved those two stamps around, and we're going to stamp them again, this time in Bundled Sage. I wanted to give that a little bit more, difference in color. Not all plants are going to be the same color. If you can look around in nature, you are going to see that nature is colorful. It varies. So I did want to give that a slightly different color, still stay in the greens. Alright, so just finishing up stamping these two stamps, and then we're going to move on to the sea urchins. So sea urchins come in a lot of different colors, but I decided for whatever reason I wanted to add a little bit of purple to this scene. So I'm going to stamp these in Shaded Lilac. And then I'm going to sponge on some Wilted Violet on the top of them. So I'm just going to slide my stamp platform over after I clean off some stuff that I had on the side. And we're going to sponge this Wilted Violet on with a little makeup sponge on the top. So I'm just going to do the little tops of them. And this is probably not really a realistic color for urchins, but that's what I decided to go with. So I'm just going to stamp those down. Get them stamped real good. I do find that oxides do take a little longer to transfer to the paper. At least I have more trouble with them. I don't know if that's just me or if that's everybody, but so I'm just going to, I thought that the Wilted Violet stamped pretty good, but I wanted to stamp on the Shaded Lilac and I didn't want to clean my stamp. I was being lazy, so I just sponged on some of the Shaded Lilac on the bottom there, and I'm just going to re-stamp that. Then we're going to move on here, and I decided to put some clear embossing powder over the Shaded Lilac, which was or the urchins, which is partially Shaded Lilac, which was a little bit of a risk because some of the stuff was still wet. I did heat set some of it along the way that I didn't show on camera, but not all of it, so it was a little bit of a risk there, but I took a dry brush and brushed off the stuff that it stuck to. It wasn't a huge deal. Alright, so now we're moving on to stamping Althea, and I'm going to stamp her out in VersaFine Clair Nocturne, and I am using that particular ink because it's the best ink that I've found, or at least that I own, that stamps silhouette stamps pretty well. I get a perfect impression almost every time. I did stamp this one. No, I didn't. I thought I stamped it twice, but I did not. And now I'm going to cover it in clear Ranger Clear Heat Embossing Powder and heat emboss that. I did prep the panel with anti-static powder tool before I stamped it. And then I'm going to heat set that off screen. And then I did decide that since she's holding her hand out, like maybe she's holding something or waiting for something to be put in her hand or something like that, I decided to stamp the fish from the Sea Creatures set, or one of the fish. I guess there's 3 fish and a jellyfish. So I'm going to stamp that one of the fish that is going to be facing her out. And I used squeezed lemonade for that one. And as you can see, it didn't stamp well the first time. I did have to stamp this several times, but I cut a lot of them out. So that's the magic of editing. Now you can see a yellow fish. And I'm going to heat emboss that one with clear as well. And then I decided that the mermaid needed to be sparkly. So I'm going to use these Nuvo glitter pens or glitter markers that I got in some Tonic craft kits. And as you can see, I'm priming one of them because I hadn't even used it yet. So you just prime it by pushing down on the nib and it goes into the pen, and then the ink will start flowing, and you just keep doing that repetitively until it comes out. I don't suggest holding it down forever until you see stuff leaking out, because then it's way too primed. But anyway, so I decided to use purple on the bottom part of the tail, and then I fade into blue. Well, okay, they have real names. I pop them up on the screen. It's like something lavender, wild lavender, and Imperial Blue, I believe. I missed them. You'll have to read them on the screen. I'm sorry. They're in the description box below as well. Anyway, so I'm going to fade the purple into the blue. You're not going to see all of it. You're just going to see the fading into the blue. And then I did do the hair as well. And I filled a lot of it in with marker, as you can see here. And then I pushed some out onto my mat and got a little, sprayed a little water into it, and then took my paintbrush here, a very small paintbrush, and I'm doing the fine parts of the hair because the nibs on these are very fat. So that was my solution of not getting it all over the place. So then, since I had extra on my mat, well, then I'm going to splatter it, of course. You can't waste it. Well, I mean, there was still a lot left, but I splattered a good portion of it all over the place. You know, all over the mat, all over my glass mat, all over my stuff on my desk, you know. So then I let it dry, and now I'm wiping it off the embossing because it is a water-based glitter marker, and so it's not going to dry on that embossing powder. So I just left that in so I remembered to tell you. So now we're going to move on to putting the card together. So these are 6x6 Scenescape panels, so they will fit a 6x6 card, or obviously you can cut them down, but I chose to use the full 6x6 size. So I've got a 100-pound 12x12 paper that I cut into a 12 or 6x6 panel, and I got something on it, so I'm just putting the 6x6 panel over the blotch there, and it's fine. So, and you can't see it through the inside, which I got lucky. Anyway, so now I've got that mounted on there, and look how sparkly and pretty that is. I love it. You'll have to let me know what you think in the comments. So I printed this sentiment on my laser printer, and I had my Cricut cut around the words. And then I took some purple Amethyst watercolor DecoFoil, and I laid the DecoFoil over the laser printed word, and I ran it through my laminator. And the foil will stick to where you have laser printed your lettering, or you can do it to an image or whatever. Wherever the toner is, the DecoFoil will stick. So that is how I foiled this sentiment, Magical Wishes. And that's what I'm using for my sentiment for my card today. And I decided that I didn't want it to be stark white, so I took some of the blueprint sketch that I used in the background of this scenescape, and I'm going to glue that straight down to my card. That way it is a somewhat one-layer card. Almost, I guess. And that will finish up my card today. I hope that you enjoyed it and will give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the Lavinia World channel. The products are in the description box below. My personal YouTube channel and social media links are also in the description box below, as well as the links to the Anything Lavinia World Facebook group and the Lavinia World store. As always, have a great day.